Friendly MOAB incoming.
Hey guys and girls, Kirsty here with something a little bit different for you all today from my standard MOAB gameplays, and this is going to be a MOAB tutorial. It'll be a two-part series covering two basic killstreak classes, one which will be specialist and another one that will be support. Support will be in the second video, so this one today is just about specialist. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I've received a lot of comments from friends and people on YouTube and people that I play with on PSN just regarding getting MOABs and how it is that I manage to get them so consistently. So I thought, what better way to give you guys a little bit of a hand than by making a bit of a tutorial. So I hope you enjoy this, guys. There are 4 or 5 main points that you really need to consider when trying for a MOAB, which I'm going to illustrate over the next couple of minutes over some MOAB gameplay. One of the main things to consider, and one of the most important things if you're trying to get a MOAB but you haven't actually obtained many in the past, is to use a strong class. I can't emphasize this enough. The main classes that I recommend is either something with the MP7 submachine gun, which is demonstrated in this first class loadout that I've put up on the screen. You might also be more of an assault rifle type of person, and that's fine. That's the thing about these loadouts, they're just a rough guideline and they're what works best for me. These are not going to necessarily work best for you guys at home, so you really need to just use them as a rough base and then build on them from there what you guys personally prefer. That's what I mean, a lot of things are interchangeable. Just one thing I do consider quite important is Scavenger Pro, because it gives you full ammunition from the start. So you won't actually need to pick up any little blue bags when you're on a really high kill streak, which can sometimes get you killed. Another perk that I've found to be quite paramount to my success is Stalker Pro. Once you actually achieve all the perks, you'll actually get all the proficiencies as well. And this can feel a little bit strange aiming if you're not used to using Stalker Pro. So I suggest using it either at the very start or as one of the first perks that you pick up through the specialist bonus. When it comes to lethal and tactical grenades, I suggest using whatever you feel comfortable with, although I personally like a portable radar as it will tend to stay with you for longer throughout the kill streak than a lot of other tactical equipment. So what I'm really trying to say is that there's no magical class when it comes to getting MOABs, and that it's going to take a little bit of trial and error and knowing yourself personally, because unfortunately I don't know everyone who's watching this video, and what works best for you might not necessarily work best for me, but I can definitely give you guys some basic tips and pointers just to help you guys improve your game and improve just getting MOABs in general. At the start of this video, I said that there would be 4 or 5 main points to address, and we've gone through the first one, which is a strong class. The next one I'd like to talk about is just knowledge of spawns, as this is what I find really destroys a lot of people, where all of a sudden you're on a big streak and next thing you know the enemy spawns behind you. Knowing spawns takes a little bit of practice and quite a little bit of game time to achieve, so if you haven't been playing for very long, don't despair, as Modern Warfare 3's spawns are a little bit dodgy at times, and you'll find that people often pop up right behind you or in areas where you don't think they're going to turn up. And spawns can also be different amongst different game modes, and there's no magical game mode that's going to make it easier to get MOABs. Well, there are some that are easier, and that I would say would be Kill Confirmed and Domination. Mainly for the fact that the spawns are quite balanced in terms of you won't have people showing up right behind you unless your entire team has disappeared to the other side of the map. Most of the time. Sometimes there's exceptions to this rule, and that is just Infinity Ward's dodgy spawning system. Another important thing to stop you getting shot in the back is just having good map awareness and just awareness of what's going on around you. That's where your teammates are, so you can judge if spawns are likely to flip, where you see those white skulls, which will let you know where teammates have just died, and use all the perks that are available to your advantage. You got to remember, when you've got specialists, you've got all perks and proficiencies, meaning you can hear enemies extra loudly while you're completely silent. You can see things on the map with recon. It's just really important. And another thing that comes down with awareness, which might be useful for people struggling with getting MOABs, is go and obtain those pro perks. I can't stress this enough. If you're really struggling with the game, obtaining things like Recon Pro and Sitrep Pro could be enough to save your life, especially when you're already stressed and nervous, which tends to happen on these big streaks. While you also have all of these advantages while running Specialist, you have one big disadvantage, and honestly, that's yourself. As you'll find when going for MOABs, you often end up very stressed and nervous, or you might end up too overconfident, which is something I do quite frequently, and you'll end up choking. This brings me to my next point, which is knowing your own limits. As these are things such as knowing your own gun skill, knowing your level of confidence, knowing how well you know the particular map that you're playing on. And another thing is knowing your enemies. I can't stress enough how important it is to just know basically where people are going to run, things that people are going to do in gunfights. People will often pull back if they're damaged or they need to reload. When I'm playing, I tend to just rush straight in now. Doing something unpredictable will often really give you the advantage in those one-on-one gunfights, especially those head-to-head gunfights where you mightn't actually be able to win. Doing things like jumping, drop-shotting, things like that are going to save your life. But if you're not confident doing these things, then definitely don't do them. But if you've paid attention to any of my videos in the past, you'll understand that a big part of getting MOABs is running like a pussy if you don't think you're going to have the advantage in a situation. When you're going for MOABs, you really want to avoid those head-to-head gunfights. You instead want to get people on their flanks or in their back. I know it sounds cheap and nasty, but you're trying to stay alive for 24 kills in a row. And back to knowing yourself and knowing your enemies. Don't expect to get MOABs in every game against every type of player. Yes, it is possible to get MOABs against strong players, but if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of MOABs under your belt, then it's probably just not going to happen. So don't be disheartened if it doesn't happen straight away, and don't even be disheartened if it doesn't happen the 20th time you try. You might actually just be trying too hard, and one day you'll just be randomly messing around and it'll suddenly pop up on the screen. But if your sole goal at the moment is to get a MOAB, I suggest playing with Specialist virtually 100% of the time. Who knows, you might even enjoy it. I think that this is why I find it so easy to get consistent MOABs, is that I play with Specialist around 98-99% of the time. So my likelihood of getting a MOAB is already twice as high, or even more, as someone who uses something like Assault in every game. Like I've said though heaps of times in the past, there's no main formula for getting a MOAB, and it really depends on you, your enemies, and the map that you're playing. The more that you try for MOABs, the more successful routes you'll find on any given map, which will, over time and future, increase your likelihood of obtaining MOABs. If you watch my videos quite frequently, you'll see that I post the same maps on a number of occasions, and you'll notice that I pretty much run the same strategies all the time, because I know what works for me, and I know what enemies are going to do in certain situations. I know where they'll be camping, I know where they'll be laying prone, I know where the snipers are going to be hanging out, and I've got a pretty good idea what people are going to do in one-on-one gunfights. But a lot of that's just from experience, and that's something that I'm not going to be able to teach you guys, but you're just going to have to learn by yourselves with time and practice. But I can give you a few basic tips which will definitely help you in obtaining the MOAB. Like I've already said before, you want to limit the amount of head-on-head engagements that you get yourself into. If you stick around the outsides of the map and watch for spawn flips, meaning that you don't just keep circling the map, sometimes you will need to turn around, especially with the revenge spawning system, where if your team's on the other side of the map, an enemy is likely to spawn right behind you. So beware of that. I also don't like to get too close to my teammates, because they have a great way of having me be hit with predator missiles, stealth bombers, and random grenades. But as someone who's a little bit new to obtaining MOABs, you might want to stay not too far away. And a great thing to help you all out is to actually have a friend or two running support. Yes, support is very, very important, and I'm not talking stealth bombers, I'm talking things like UAVs and ballistic vests. This is something I'm going to be talking about in a lot more depth in my next tutorial, which will be part 2, which will be completely dedicated to obtaining support MOABs. And it'll show the classes that your friend should use in order to help you obtain a MOAB for yourself. Anyway guys, I hope you found this part of the tutorial useful. I'll be back with second part of this tutorial very soon. Bye!